No.
What really matters is the amount that the state government is on the hook for. The WA Treasury Corporation has to pay back on behalf of the people of Western Australia. That's what the gross debt is. Let's get on to the Gillard defence. We had Rudd, and we had the increase of debt. And we had exactly the same defence that the Treasurers now use, which is, oh, but other states have got more debt than us. So this is like saying, oh, we've got a boat loan, but the bloke's boat loan up the road is bigger than ours, so we're not so bad off. It's still a boat loan. And more importantly, the people of Western Australia have eventually got to pay that loan back. And the problem with the mortgage that you've got is it's an interest-only loan. They're not paying off any of the principal. So I bet even members on the other side have got a mortgage. I bet you're all making payments against your principal. Yeah. So if that's what the problem is, that actually there's no money being paid off against the loan of Western Australia. So you can see this is why this is growing like topsy, because the borrowing is going nuts. It's the people of Western Australia and our grandchildren who are going to have to pay this off. So how's older Derek going with financing all this? Because, you know, the problem with Derek's got a side job. Oh. At night, he breaks out through the window and he goes to the casino and he goes gambling at casino on royalties and transfer duty. Yeah. And you know, he's had an incredible run of luck. Yeah, sure. For about 10 years, he hasn't gone wrong. When he goes to the casino every night, he puts money on red, he keeps on winning.
Hit the jackpot.
He hits the jackpot. And he comes home and his wife goes, oh, what a wonderful life we're leading. It's just fantastic. Oh. You know, we're in this really beautiful house and we've got all these beautiful things. We've got this beautiful boat you've bought us. And he's inside looking at the ceiling at night going, got to go down to the casino again. Just hope those iron ore prices and those stamp duty, if house prices keep going. But there was nothing about this revenue that you created at all. It just landed as a windfall. It had nothing to do with you creating more environment for higher iron ore prices or more environment for higher land prices. Don't call it good management, because I tell you what good management is. Good management is running and operating your expenses. As what Buffett said, when all the tide goes out, meaning the revenue goes out, we find out where all the expense bodies are lying. I can tell you, well, your expenses are growing at 10% a year. You're buggered in about 3 or 4 years, because that compounds and that's going to go completely topsy. But you know what old Cookie, you know his best mate is? He's his bookkeeper, and her name's Rita, and when he wants to dial up some money, he's got this unlimited credit card. And so, how much do you need, Cookie? Oh, I need $5 billion to cover what I've got to do. Okay, so before you know it, dial up some ECB bonds overseas. This is where they come from. By the way, people of Western Australia, they're borrowing from offshore, not from Australians, foreign banks. And by the way, the interest rate's going up because this debt's been pushed out, and interest rates like 2 years ago when they bought their bonds are a lot lower than what they are now. They've gone up by about 40 basis points. Not only is the level of debt getting higher, the rate of the interest on that debt is getting higher. Everybody understands this. Every West Australian who's got a mortgage knows that if you borrow more money, you're paying more interest, and if you're borrowing more recent money when interest rates are higher, you're going to be paying more interest on the rate. Here's the big trick that's in the budget papers. That interest bill goes up by nearly $1 billion. So that means that the government of Western Australia has got to find another $1 billion to cover his interest. Where's that going to come from? It's only going to come from one place, because you're going to have to borrow more money to cover your interest. You're into a Ponzi scheme that keeps on going and keeps on going, and before you know it, you end up being Victoria, because this is where we're at now. So, you know, that $1 billion that you're now going to have to pay in interest, 3 or 4 years from now, that's equivalent to like half a hospital. You know, if you didn't have the borrowings because you control your spending, then you wouldn't have to have the interest rate, which means that you'd be able to use that money for other things. Then we move on to dividends. Do you remember I spoke about sandbags last year? I mentioned to you last year that particularly Western Power and Water Corp, they actually make reasonable profits, particularly Water Corp. So what they do is they make a declaration of a dividend, and then what happens is the Treasurer puts it in the accounts as income that's going to be coming in, which has the effect of making the operating balance a lot better. But here's the thing. Under the GTE Act that was introduced 3 or 4 years ago, they don't never have to actually pay the dividend across to the Treasurer. So they can hold on to the dividend which is what they do. So last year, for example, there was supposed to be $2.8 billion of dividends. That was the budgeted amount. First moment that red book landed on my desk, the first thing I did was go and look at what actual dividends had been paid. Guess what? $1.5 billion. Not 2.8, so that's a 1.3 billion swing that never happened. Water Corp never gave that money to the government, or Western Power never gave that money to the government. So don't you reckon, in an honest, ethical way, you could get the what happened one-off? You know, maybe the Western Power had a significant event they had to cover, so the board decided to hold on to the dividends. It happens now and again. But every year, one after the other, declaring a dividend, and then all of a sudden the minister says, oh, we're not going to have to pay the dividend. Wouldn't you think that ethical accounting practices would say, maybe we shouldn't actually add those dividends anymore. Maybe they're not really income after all, because they're actually being retained and used for capital works within those entities themselves. So, okay, there's $3.5 billion there's $1.3 billion of dividend money you never have received on average over the last 3 or 4. You know that operating balance that we were told about, starting to get pretty slim. And then of course old Derek's down there at the casino every night, rolling dice and seeing if he can come up on royalties, and he does.
Jackpot, is it coming up?
But you know what, this bloke walked up the other day and he said, Derek, I reckon that iron ore price, be a bit, I reckon you might just want to be a bit careful about that. And Derek says, no, I'm a winner. I'm going to roll the dice again, just in the hope. But I tell you, expenses are growing so fast and your cash burn is so high, it wouldn't even matter whether the iron ore price stays at $100 a tonne, because you're going to overtake it. And the figures that are already here show that. So next year's budget is going to be an absolute ripper, because all of these figures will be much, much worse than they are now. And by 2028, it'll be very, very clear what's going on. And we're all going to see it, and the public will see it. Now, cost of living is the last one I was going to talk about. And you want the people of Western Australia very, very grateful for giving $1 of your $55 billion. I tell you what, if I was running a not-for-profit, and I did, say we had community funding of $55 billion and we actually gave out $1 billion, do you reckon that would be a fair allocation of money? Oh, we're going to give the people $1 out of 55. No.
Mean-spirited.
Cost of living support at $1 billion, when your turnover, your not-for-profit cost is $55 billion, is pathetic. It's paltry. You should be ashamed of yourself. Absolutely. And I would say that basically to think that the Labor Party, which is supposed to be the party of social justice and the party of looking after the poor and the disadvantaged, to think that you give $1 billion out of a $55 billion budget is nothing to be proud of. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we find ourselves. Your debt will increase, and the Western Australian people will slowly and surely understand this, because they all understand debt. Most people have a mortgage. They all understand interest, and they will have a very different conversation